Alright, hey there guys, Charles with Dubs Media here, and today I'm going to be talking about on-camera flashes and controlling them off-camera and kind of my journey with flash photography, kind of what I've learned thus far. So let me start by saying flash photography is a game of guesswork, I think is the best way to put it. There's a lot of rules and things that you can use to kind of speed up the process, but it is really a lot of research. You have to make sure that you're getting the right flash for your style of photography. And so, as you can see here, I've got several different types of flash units that I've gotten here. And I stuck with kind of the Yongnuo brand, just because I've seen a lot of reviews on them, and they didn't seem to be poor quality. Flashes aren't something that I use daily, so I wasn't looking at spending the kind of money like the Canon 600DX versions are. They're like $500 or $600, especially for something that I just wanted to kind of dabble in and see what I liked. And as I started to get into it more, I noticed that I really did like it a lot. So I started off with this guy. I'll set these to the side here. The YN563 speedlights, and I picked up 2 of these, just because in all of the stuff that I've learned and I've watched and seen, you should have kind of your front-facing light and your key light, or your hair light, your rim light. And so I picked up 2 of these and started kind of working them into my photography, and really, to be honest, this hasn't been a bad flash at all. As long as you understand the limitations and you work within those limitations, I swear these little flashes will work out for anybody. Now, you do have to deal with little quirks, like sometimes they won't fire and sometimes the recycle times aren't quite the same. So, I mean, you do have to deal with little quirks, but for the money, I mean, I think these are between like 80 and 100 bucks right now. And so you could save yourself a ton of money if you're just getting into flash photography, want to kind of tinker with it and play around with it, and pick up one of these. Now, this is a completely manual control flash. What that means is you have to pick your power that you want to flash, you have to pick your zoom, you got to make sure that you're doing kind of the leg work to make sure that you're getting the right amount of flash for the scene that you're trying to shoot. And I found that these worked really good, at least initially for me as I was learning, to kind of put different powers and test out different shots and see how it would look and things like that. A lot of trial and error went into it for me to kind of figure out these guys. And then what I kind of noticed was I started taking them off camera, and so I picked up this guy, this manual, or this controller here, this flash controller, and so you could put this on your camera and you can wirelessly control the power and the groups and stuff right from your camera, which saves a ton of time from running back and forth to your camera or to the flash and trying to change the power and things like that on it. And it really came out handy. Like I said, I'd done quite a bit of shooting with these guys, and they still work. You know, I don't think this is anything that you're going to be using for 10 years or anything like that. Oftentimes you'll find that you'll tend to grow as you get into flash photography. So like I've moved on to kind of bigger flashes and things like that. So honestly, for what it was though, it did teach me a lot about, or a lot of trial and error, but it did teach me a lot about off-camera flash. And then I picked up the 564, and really this was not necessarily understanding what the difference between the 3 and the 4 was. I had 2 of the 3s currently with one of these, and I was able to work them off camera, and then so I wanted to pick up a 3rd one because I wanted to put 2 on a bracket and kind of get extra power out of them. Because I've been trying to figure out how to get faster and faster shutter speeds to kind of shoot and drown out the sun during the day, and learn how to kind of create my own light. Regardless of what the situation is outside, I could create light with flash basically. And so I spent the extra money on the 564, not realizing that really the difference between the 3 and the 4 was having like a transmitter inside the 4. So with the 4, you could control one of these or fire one of these. And so in my opinion, I really wouldn't pick up another 4. I would just pick up another 3 if you've got one of these and you're looking at just kind of controlling them wirelessly. So I mean, that's the major difference between the two. But what I kept running into is I wanted to be able to do high-speed sync, and I wanted to be able to you know, go into 1/2000th, 1/3000th shutter speed, because all of the photos and stuff that I was watching or that I saw that I really liked, they were able to kind of blow or darken that background in the middle of a day, kind of make the subject pop, I guess, in that picture with light on there. So I realized that you needed to have a different type of flash. So I had 3 of these guys here, 2 of the 563s and the 4 and this controller, and so I started to look into what I would need to do to get something like high-speed sync and to get TTL functions. And that's what kind of brought me to the 560-600 EXRT. And these guys have been really good with a few exceptions, and I'll get to that a little bit later. But these give you what's called TTL, and they take you through, so it's through the lens metering. So what happens is your camera kind of fires, it meters what light it needs for the scene, and it tells the flash what power to kind of flash or to meter the scene correctly. You also get high-speed sync with these. So on my Canon 70D, I can go up to 1/8000th of a second. And it's pretty crazy sometimes to see the daylight change at 1/8000th of a second compared to, say, 1/250th of a second. The scene changes quite a bit. It's drastic. And so with flash on your subject, you can kind of separate them from the background regardless of what's going on outside, which was really a neat thing. And after a few shoots of trying to kind of figure everything out with these, I decided to go this route because it would make my life so much easier. And it's not that you can't do it with these, you definitely can. There's just a lot more work involved and thought involved as far as the flash goes. And to be honest, I wanted to, being a newer photographer, I wanted to focus more on my composition and getting the scenes that I want and making sure that you know, my backgrounds are correct, the poses are correct, that I'm actually communicating with whoever I'm shooting, instead of trying to figure out what power my flash needed to be at and what shutter speed and that sort of thing. So these guys really did kind of open up a lot of possibilities for me, and I've been able to create some pretty nice images with them. I've got 2 of these, and I've put these on one of those brackets where you get the 2 side by side like this, and you can put them in a light modifier, and you can get a decent amount of light out of a 600 EXRT, like combined 2 of them into a light modifier, and they really worked out well. I recently shot a wedding though, and that's what really brought kind of the shortcomings to light for me. So ultimately, when you're shooting portraits, you have time to kind of move between different shots. You have time to kind of think about what your next plan would be. You have time to set up the scene, and so the recycle times on these guys really wasn't a big deal for me. It's something that I really had never thought about, and really it's something I should have thought about, and so that's why I'm making this video, to kind of help people think about it. If you're going to shoot something like fast action or something where you need multiple flashes and you need your flash to fire every time, these guys will not do it on their own. On the side here, you'll see a little port or a little flap, and there's a battery pack. And so you need to have an external battery pack. So anybody that's thinking about picking these up and want to kind of supplement their photography with flash, maybe you're a wedding shooter or you're a sports shooter, I can't stress enough how much you want to invest in one of those battery packs. It will make a huge difference in the recycle times on these guys, and you definitely need to do that. The second kind of shortcoming that I came across was the fact that the batteries in the middle of the day on these things, if you're going back to back on shots, so you're firing it, it's recycling, it beeps, you fire again, and you notice those recycle times get longer and longer, but these things get really, really hot. So again, I can't stress enough having a separate battery pack in there to pull that power from, because sometimes you can pull the batteries out of these guys if you've been shooting for 20 or 30 minutes, testing different lights, testing different angles, you know, trying to get the right photo that you've had, that you have in your mind. And these guys can be really, really, really hot. The batteries are pretty much cooked by the time they're done. You're done with something like that. The other kind of shortcoming that I didn't really like is the locking mechanism on these guys. It's got similar to the Canon locking mechanism, which is different from this guy, and that this guy just has like a screw that you loosen and tighten here to kind of tighten it down. This has a locking mechanism here, so hit that little button and it locks in, and it's supposed to push down and stay in the camera. I've found that these, and it has a little rubber boot that stays in the back there, and I lost that a little while back actually, but I found that these guys aren't quite as tight as they used to be when they're sitting in the camera. So I find myself trying to kind of make sure that my flashes are set up correctly, or my flashes are set in there correctly. It's definitely something to kind of take note of. If you're somebody that takes your flash on and off stands and stuff quite a bit, then you're definitely going to want to maybe think about getting a different type of adapter or something, maybe a different type of flash. I just don't see this standing up for very long. I could be wrong with that, but definitely if some of you guys have had these for a couple years and they're still fine, they don't move around in that port at all on top of the camera, then let me know for sure. But really a great little flash system for not a lot of money, and for someone like me that wanted to get into it and wanted to learn, wanted to start using off-camera flash quite a bit more. These guys have been a time saver galore. Setting these up, you can set up your different lights and it meters through the lens, and it may not always be perfect, but it saves you a heck of a lot of time over something like this guy. But even these, once you understand the types of the amount of light and stuff that you need to meter a scene correctly, those aren't too bad either, because you can kind of set them, and you set them for each of the scenes and they're good to go. So I guess my recommendation is, if you're looking for a decent way to get into off-camera flash and on-camera flash, you don't have a ton of money to spend like I did. I was kind of limited in my budget and what I wanted to spend. And so these guys have worked out perfectly for me. If I had it to do over again, I probably would have skipped this step. And I would have just gone with these right away. Ideally, I think with the high-speed sync and the TTL, this is kind of what I was looking for, what I was trying to accomplish with these guys originally. So I would have probably skipped that step and gone just for these, and I probably would have had 3 or 4 of these. That way you can kind of take one down. If one heats up or gets hot, you can take one down and pop in another one. The groups, one thing I didn't talk about is this YN E3 RT trigger. So this guy, when it was on my camera, sticks straight up and down. It was highly annoying. And I can't tell you why. It's not that it really restricted me from doing anything. It just is sticking straight off the top of the camera like that when you're using the eyepiece to shoot. It was something that was definitely noticeable. On this guy, it kind of sits at an angle like this, and it definitely is quite a bit better. And when you bring your camera down, you can look straight down on it and you can control your groups. And I really haven't had any issues at all with this controlling the flashes. It even has the indicator to kind of tell you when the flash is paired with the device too, which is kind of nice. Because you know, oftentimes once you get into firing these and you're shooting a couple different shots and you're not really thinking about your flash because your flash is set where you want it to set, you just keep firing to get the right shot. You know, I'll look down sometimes and I'll not see the little thunderbolt there, and that means it's not actually paired with the flash. And that's, you know, I'll start looking at my images and I'll see that some of them will be missing the side flash or missing one side or the other. And then that's an indication that I need to either slow down my shooting because they're not recycling fast enough, or I need to change out the batteries because the batteries have gone dead. Realistically, I probably get about 100 shots, maybe 50 to 100 shots. Depends on if I'm shooting at 1/8,000th of a second trying to drown out the sun and get a really black background and separate the subject. I mean, then these are going to be firing at pretty much full power. 50, 60 shots, you could be done with a set of batteries. And it's not to say that the batteries are bad, but by then they're so hot that I don't want to leave them in the flash anymore. So I end up pulling the batteries out and putting a different set of batteries in there so that they're not quite so hot. And so I've never gone back and actually tested the batteries after the fact to see if they're still good or not. But I definitely know that you don't want to leave them in there once they get that hot. So outside of that, they've been great flashes for me. Anybody interested in looking into off-camera flash or on-camera flash, definitely pick one of these up. And pick up the battery pack if you're an event photographer. I know it's going to be a nuisance to kind of carry around that separate battery pack, but oftentimes you don't have time to sit there and wait the 2 or 3 seconds that it might cause for these or that it might take for these to recycle. So that battery pack will make a huge difference in being able to shoot kind of back to back. So yeah, that's been kind of my journey in flash photography. Still trying to get into this channel, so if you guys like the content that I'm producing, hit the like button, please subscribe and hit that bell to get notifications, and yeah, until next time guys, just get out there and shoot.